Hi, my friends. Welcome. You've made it to the final video of the series. Congrats on that. In this video, I know we've covered a lot. So what I'm going to do here is go through a quick summary of the key points that we've covered through all the previous videos. And I'm going to show you a real live case study of one of my clients so you can see the step-by-step process of how all this comes together. So without any further ado, let's jump in. All right, so here we go. We're going to heal IBS for good according to Ayurveda or with Ayurveda because that's what we love. So as we covered in just the previous video, we talked about what is the true definition of health. And according to Ayurveda, it's much more than just not being sick, as we think in the West. So what does that mean? It's balanced doshas. So all three doshas are in their proper place and not aggravated. Balanced Agni, so your digestive system is properly processing food and transforming food products into nutrients to nourish all of your tissues. Balanced Dhatus, or well-formed tissues. And so we have the seven tissues of the body. Again, we covered in just the previous video and talking about every single one of those is a trickle-down effect to be healthy and get a fully properly functioning system. And then proper elimination of waste. And this is one of the biggest ones between here, Agni and Ama. Waste is getting rid of the products that your body doesn't need so that you don't clog up the channels and then increase the doshas, disturb the tissues, and create disease. And we're going to go about that, through this video. And of course, you want a joyful soul, clear senses, and peace of mind. So this is the illustration that we talked about. This is the Agni. So we want the digestive fire to be strong. When the digestive fire is strong, food is properly cooked and transformed into usable material. That usable material gets digested and eliminated in a proper fashion. When it's not, this is the Ama that builds up inside of our intestinal wall. And then the Ama gets absorbed out of the intestinal wall into the bloodstream and moves throughout the whole entire body until it disturbs the tissues. This is the balanced doshas. So Kapha is in the upper region here. Pitta is in the digestive region here, like the liver, gallbladder, spleen, etc., stomach. And then Vata predominantly resides in the colon. And then these will all increase in their site when they are aggravated. And once they get to the point where they're too aggravated, and this will be different on every single person, how much your body can handle of an increased or disturbed dosha. But eventually, if that provocation continues, then that dosha will leave its site and move throughout the body and create disease. So we want to balance the Agni and Ama, and how we do that is through eating. And the way we're eating, what we're eating, how we're eating, when we're eating, all of these things are absolutely key and the primary way to strengthen Agni and balance the doshas because it's something that we do on a daily basis. General eating rules, which we covered in the Ayurveda Food as Medicine video already in the previous, but just generally Vata type people and Vata type IBS, you want to have warm, grounding, oily foods. Root vegetables are great. You definitely want to avoid raw, dry, or cold foods, crackers, fresh fruit, things like that. Not that those foods are bad, they're just bad for this condition. Pitta IBS, so this is typically IBS-D. You want cooling foods, so it's like that fire. You want to like tamper that fire down. You want anti-inflammatory foods, which are wonderful. And then you want to avoid anything that's going to aggravate Pitta. And the primary aggravators for Pitta in terms of food are spicy foods, acidic foods, fermented foods, also fried foods. And then finally for Kapha IBS, which is typically IBS-C, but the heavy, sticky, slow, mucousy stools rather than the dry, hard stools, which would be in Vata IBS. Or Vata IBS can be constipation, dry, or oftentimes mixed between dry constipation and then like diarrhea. So Kapha IBS is relatively consistent with constipation, but again, it's that heavy, slow, sticky, bulky, mucousy stool. So to counterbalance that, you want light, warm, drying foods. So like roasted grains, things like that are really wonderful. And then you want to be avoiding anything that would contribute to kapha-like qualities, which would be dairy, heavy, sweet, or cold foods. So no ice creams, pastries, etc. And then we moved into and had a really nice conversation about mental health, mental ama and agni in the body. And As I always love to say, so the body and the mind are the left and right foot along the path to health. And we need to be nourishing both our mental, construct and our mental health, along with our physical health. And when we're working from both sides and have both of these working in conjunction with each other, then we can really speed up how our bodies are healing, how our minds are healing, etc. That feedback loop starts to harmonize and synchronize, and then health just moves way faster. And the opposite is true. If it's disturbed, then health can deteriorate very quickly. If you start to feel sick and you're like, then you're in a bad mood. Well, then the bad mood will make your body more sick, and the body being more sick will make you more in a bad mood. And it becomes this, kind of internal echo chamber of just feeling bad all the time. So we got to work towards feeling good all the time, and then we will be good all the time. The mind has its own mental Agni, so the way we're perceiving and processing and digesting life experiences, our mental acuity needs to be strong for that so that those experiences don't leave remnants and disturbances afterwards. So it's like if you get into an argument, you know, all the old sayings, it's like forgive and forget, let go, just move on, all those things that would be considered like good mental Agni so that you don't have mental Ama built up. And if you have this constant chatter of arguments and disturbances and negative things rolling around in the back of your mind, that would be considered mental Ama. And so that's, we need to process those things and release them. And then I gave a bunch of tools in that video on the mind and the gut, which you can check out in general. So daily breath work or pranayama is extremely powerful. And then meditating for 20 minutes at least 20 minutes, and then doing that twice a day is an extremely, extremely powerful tool for moving in the right direction. And I talked about, different types of meditation. And I will later link another video down here. I think I'm going to do a more extensive instructions on meditation for you guys. And then, of course, there's all different types of things that you can do: journaling, therapy, community, exercise, et cetera, et cetera. All these things are really wonderful practices for helping to calm the mind and heal that mental aspect of ourselves. All right, and using herbs for IBS. So herbs are extremely powerful tools. And as usual, I don't publicly recommend any medicinal herbs. Medicinal herbs are extremely powerful and should be used with care and guidance, based on your specific condition. But you can get a lot of purchase real estate with using culinary herbs, and you should be using culinary herbs in all of your cooking. And then you can also use culinary herbs as a pre-digestive while you're eating and as a post-digestive. So here's some pretty good general recommendations, and there's more information about this in the guide for each specific dosha / each specific type of IBS. So if you haven't already, I would hope you have at this point to the 10th video. You can download the guide in the link below. But as a pre-digestive, so ginger is great for all three doshas. Cumin is generally better for Vata and Kapha, and then coriander is great for Pitta. So all of these herbs, what they're going to do is, as a pre-digestive, you're always stimulating or increasing your Agni, your digestive power, so your body's ability, again, to process and digest that food in the way that we want to. And then herbs that are incorporated in your food, again, are going to have a compounding effect on increasing Agni, helping with digestion, help reducing Ama. And then herbs that you take after your meal is over, typically within a 30-minute window, 30-minute window pre-digestive and 30-minute window post-digestive. These will help with just the digestive disturbances, like here, reducing bloating and discomfort, gas, etc. But they'll have that kind of acute symptomatic effect, but they're also going to have a long-term effect in helping digest Ama, breaking down those undigested food particles and eliminating from the system. So herbs that are great for that is CCF tea or cumin coriander fennel tea, ginger tea, mint tea, and then you can also just do CCF chewed. Take the whole seeds, put a teaspoon in your mouth and chew, 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 chew for at least like a whole minute, and then swallow. And this is going to be really good, extremely medicinal. I do this after every single meal, all the time, every day. It's a really powerful tool to have in the toolkit that, I wouldn't trade for anything. Again, in the last video, we covered all this, the Dhatus. So these are the 7 tissues in the body according to Ayurveda. And when you eat food, each tissue gets nourished day by day. And so the Agni of your stomach will determine the strength of the Agni of every single tissue down the line. And we want every single tissue down the line to have really good Agni so that we can produce Ojas. And Ojas, again, is that kind of miracle substance inside the body that is very highly contributing to our overall well-being, our nourishment, our strength, our vitality, our immunity, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to developing good Ojas is going to make you highly resistant to getting disease. You know, if any one of these tissues might falter at some point for whatever reason, you'll having that Ojas is like a backup system. Your whole entire body, has all these checks and balances. It's the three doshas, it's the seven dhatus, it's the Ama and the Agni, and then of course now I'm speaking, it's the Ojas. And so when we nourish all of these and all of these are working well, we have great, vibrant, awesome, wonderful health. And if something should fail somewhere along the way, you would be noticing symptoms. And I mentioned some of the symptoms here for each tissue. When they're weakened, you'll know to start to treat that thing before full-blown disease ever occurs. So that's really important. And so again, we've just reviewed all of this stuff. We want balanced doshas. We want good Agni. We want properly formed tissues so that we're producing good Ojas. And we want proper elimination of Ama. And that is what's going to lead to a healthy physical body. And we want to be working on our meditation, our pranayama, to produce a peaceful mind. And this is going to be the full achievement of a healthy state. And it's not to say that you're going to be 100% invincible, because life is still life and things happen, but things are going to be going much better for you when all of these things are taken care of. Recovering from disease, when it does come, if it does come, is going to be that much easier for you. So now, as promised, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's see what all this looks like when it's put together in a full system. We're going to look at a case study of one of my clients that I had in 23, I think. I won't tell you everything. We'll just get into it and you'll see. And this case study is also included at the bottom of the guide, so you can see the whole entire thing and get an idea of what it looks like to work with me and to implement these things in a real life situation. All right, so here we're inside the case study, and as you can see, IBS Complete Guidebook. This is exactly the same exact copy that you guys have, so you have access to all of this in the whole guide. We'll get back down here, case study. Perfect. So this woman, she was 45 years old at the time that we connected, female, her occupation, author, founder, speaker, educator, quite busy. She's an entrepreneur. She's out there, go-getting, hustle. She's definitely Pitta dosha, which you'll see as we get down. But she came to me because she was having IBS. These are her goals. She wants pristine health. She, as a yoga teacher and spiritual aficionado, really wanted to be able to express her full self in the world. And she knew she wasn't really there because she was experiencing all these symptoms: inflammation, diarrhea, distension, skin issues. These are all like key, textbook indicators of IBS-D, and aggravated Pitta dosha, constant muscle and joint pain. Anytime that there's pain in the body, that's increased Vata. So she had increased Pitta, increased Vata, and then the joints cracking and popping, also Vata. Eczema is Pitta. When she was younger, she had a staph infection. She, has been prone to getting eczema and acne. Pancreatitis twice. So itis means inflammation. Inflammation again, indicative of Pitta. So she's been experiencing, increased Pitta throughout her whole entire life. And then these are some of the things that she had tried. Again, these are all her words. She's just giving this. When we work together, I send you an intake form. This is basically exactly that intake form filled out, copied and pasted from her intake. So she's tried all sorts of different things, you can see, but she's had chronic issues for her whole entire life. If I remember correctly, when we did the actual intake, it's like an hour and a half interview when we sit down and do the Ayurvedic consultation. She had been having her digestive issues started when she was a teenager. She here, saying in her 20s and 30s, really started noticing like that she just wasn't a healthy person, and had been searching and searching and trying all these things. Didn't get very far because a lot of other systems, in my own experience and working with different clients, it's not looking at the whole system. And that's one of the biggest strengths and benefits of Ayurveda is we look at every single factor to understand exactly what's wrong with you and get you laser treatment, laser guided advice. So I'm not going to hammer down on too much of all of this. Obviously, you can read this at your own pace, but she's active. She does yoga, as mentioned. She's spiritually oriented, meditates every single day. And so you can see too here where she's doing a lot of the right things, but they were the wrong things for her body. And we'll get down to her recommendations. And then this is just, getting a general idea of what her meal times are. So we made adjustments to her meal times. We had made adjustments to the things that she was eating, what to incorporate more of, what to avoid. Extremely strong appetite. So again, this is a very Pitta type thing, is that fire is raging. So the hunger is just constantly there. And then same thing like with this is like drinking tons of water. She's always thirsty, and this is an interesting thing to know. So soda stream or carbonated water has bubbles in it. Bubbles are air. And when you're drinking this air all the time, you're increasing Vata, the air and ether elements inside of the body. That's why she was having a lot of the cracking and the popping of the joints and the pain. The increased Vata was due to just this lifestyle. So we did a lot of these adjustments. Again, you'll see that down in the recommendations. Supplements. So these were given to her by another practitioner that she was seeing, chiropractor and naturopath. And a lot of this kind of recommendations end up being, in my personal observation, using herbs and nutraceuticals as replacements to pharmaceuticals. And as we talked about in one of the earlier videos, pharmaceuticals or allopathy is symptom treatment. It's not root cause treatment. So it's like, oh, if you have a headache, you take a headache pill. Well, taking a headache pill isn't addressing what is the root cause that you got the headache in the first place. And so whether you're taking a pharmaceutical headache pill or you're taking an herbal headache pill or you're taking a vitamin, nutraceutical headache pill, the way you're approaching the problem is exactly the same as you're trying to approach the problem from a symptomatic viewpoint. And in Ayurveda, we want to approach the problem from a causation viewpoint. What was the reason you got the headache in the first place? What was the reason you got IBS in the first place? What was the reason you got A, B, C, D, etc., disease in the first place? And we heal the causes, and then the symptoms, or quote, the disease itself goes. So menstrual cycle, we got this back online within 3.5 months, which is extremely awesome. And she had just had an IUD removed right before we started seeing each other. That's just a little bit more of a note of her intake. This is like a very small overview. When I do the Ayurvedic consultation, it's like an 11-page document, and typically like 60 to 90 minutes, sometimes longer, not usually, but like a good hour and a half intake period of time where we go even deeper than what you're seeing here. This intake, this is just like a preliminary intake. I thought that would be good enough for you guys to see, to understand just where this woman was coming from when we first started to see each other. So here, these would be the recommendations, and this would be what you would receive when we work together. And when I give this to someone, we spend then another hour and a half together, and I walk through every single one of these things. I explain, just like I explained above, in more detail, what I'm seeing about your body. I'm educating you about the different things that you're eating. So it's like, not drinking the carbonated water, for all the water that you drink in a day because it increases Vata, things like that. Here, I go through the recommendations with somebody, and just to explain what these are. So constitution, prakriti, or dosha is like what your dosha is supposed to be, what you were born with, what your body would be ideally expressing now. And then Vikriti is your current state of balance or current state of imbalance. Vikriti can be considered as like a costume or just a different state of being. It's a state of being not in harmony with your genealogy, your original intent, or your DNA's like birth expression. And a lot of that is covered in Western medical science, kind of in cool ways that echoes what Ayurveda has been saying for thousands of years. So through genetic expression, if your genes are expressing themselves in healthy ways, you won't experience disease. That's why like one brother or sister might get something that the parent had passed down to them, but the other one won't. And this would be based on their lifestyle, nature versus nurture. Both are important, obviously. You got to take them into consideration. So this would be like your nature, what you were born with, and this is your nurture. This is what you're doing to your body over an extended period of time based on the foods that you eat, the way that you live your life. Ideally, when we work together, we want these numbers to match each other. Your Vikriti should be the same as your Prakriti. That's a lot of words to explain that. But her Vata should be at 2, it's at 3. So her Vata is currently elevated in this case study. Her Pitta should be 3, that's her predominant dosha. Her Pitta is 4 plus, so it's increased more than 1 point. And then her Kapha, it wasn't super elevated, or her Kapha should be a little bit higher in her natural state. And actually, in her current condition, it was diminished. So she wasn't having a really proper and well-formed expression of Kapha because the Vata and Pitta were so high. So the Kapha itself was decreasing. And then A stands for Ama. We talked about Agni and Ama multiple times throughout the series. So Ama is like, how much buildup does she have? And directly Ama related symptoms is she experiencing? And based on that, I've evaluated at having 1.5 points of Ama out of a total of 4 plus is the biggest number that you can go. 3 is the better, and then 4 means you're excess, and then plus means you're really excess. That's an explanation of that. And then now we'll go through her recommendations. So she was drinking coffee throughout the day. So my first recommendation is, things to avoid. Like these are like big key factors where I'm like, these are really causing problems for you. And as mentioned in a previous video, when you eliminate the causative factors, whatever is causing the disease, whatever is causing the disturbance, you're 50% of the way to healing the disease already. So when you know what the wrong things that you are doing that you may or may not know, eating peanuts, eating spicy, fried, sour, fermented foods, etc. Once you eliminate those from your diet, you're halfway there. You're not causing any further damage or further disturbances. So things to avoid, this is really important. So for her, no drinking coffee after 10 a.m., no more eating of spicy, fried, sour, or fermented foods, no eating of acidic foods, and then soda water, as I just mentioned. All of that carbonation can be really increasing in Vata, which she was experiencing an elevation in. So those are the things to avoid. Now, the rest of the sheet is recommendations, things that you should be doing instead. So I recommended that she do a half calf espresso. So it would be half espresso grounds and a half chicory. And then again, just reinforcing that if you're going to drink coffee, drink it before 10 a.m. Pitta Vata dietary guide. So every client that I work with, I'll give them a specific guide for them for their conditions. So in this IBS guide, it's a bit broader, it's a bit more general. And, I'm trying to meet people where they're at. But when I work with you as a client, then you get, much more honed in specific, more detailed, lots of stuff in there. Wonderful bit of information. And then, so for each one of our meals, having 2 to 3 teaspoons per meal. Ghee is wonderful. And inside this guide right here, the IBS Complete Guidebook, you can see which oils are good for each dosha. 1 tablespoon of Greek yogurt per meal. Technically, this is a fermented food. It was a limited amount, and it was with other food at each meal. And this is helping work on the microbiome. As we know, Greek yogurt is wonderful for getting those probiotics in there to help. And then breakfast, she was doing her own little smoothie. So we had a reorganization on this, and I gave her a specific recipe. Apple pie smoothie or apple pie bowl. This is one of my own culinary inventions that works exactly with Ayurveda, which is wonderful. And then CCFT, this is also in the guide as a recommendation. This is good for anybody, whether you have IBS, a digestive issue or not. CCFT is wonderful to drink. So to make 1 liter of CCFT total and drink that, sip it throughout the day. And then throughout the week, it can be mentally challenging to eat the same food over and over and over again. If you're familiar with Ayurveda, worked in Ayurveda, know people who do Ayurveda, you may have heard somebody chagrin about, I had to eat khichdi for 3 weeks and it was so annoying. Khichdi is a wonderful meal. It's very stabilizing for the body. And I have a recipe in this guide for you guys. For her, anyways, at least 3 times a week for lunch. Lunch is a wonderful meal to concentrate and do this on, is doing khichdi for that meal. And again, this recommendation, for her, it's a Pitta specific khichdi. You can do a Tridosha khichdi, you can do Vata khichdi, Kapha khichdi, with different adjustments of spices and vegetables. But having that for lunch is very gentle on the digestive system, which gives your body a break so that it can heal, which is wonderful. So that's why I'm saying 3 times a week. Like, let's just give your body a pause. And people love this recipe so much that they oftentimes do it more than my minimum recommendations, which is fun. Or they'll do it for like lunch and dinner for those 3 days when they make it. They'll just make a bigger batch and have it for 2 meals instead of one. So here, exercise, you saw above. I didn't talk about it too much, but you can read. She is very physically active, which is great. We love that. But Pitta people can tend to overwork themselves. So this is one of my own little Austin Fantastic philosophies for Pitta types. The classic, Ayurvedic saying is, do yoga or do exercise at 70% of your capacity. I'm Pitta predominant, and that's really hard for me to wrap my mind around. So I came up with this little saying is precision over power. Instead of when going out for a run or going out for a bike or whatever physical activity it is, those are things I like to do. Instead of trying to like go gung ho and just boom, 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 full power, all this explosiveness, what you can focus it on is your stride, your technique, your movement, your cadence, your grace. How easily are you moving? So now your exercise becomes a stronger mental game and you're focusing on precision rather than focusing on explosive power. And this will force you to work at a lower capacity, at a 70 to 80% capacity. And it'll be extremely satisfying for the Pitta mind that likes to think and see and just be really understanding the world. The fire, Pitta, fire is like the light of the mind. So the mind wants to see and perceive and analyze things. That's a Pitta quality. So that's an exercise recommendation. Yoga asanas. So for her, these were just specific to what she had going on. Meditation. So I do offer medicinal mantras. I studied for 2 years at 2 different ashrams in Vedanta and Tantric yoga. Through that experience, I've learned different energetic things. So learning about her age, her disease, or I wouldn't say disease, but state of balance. Then I'll give a mantra recommendation. So I left it blank intentionally, so nobody's copying. Obviously, it was specific for her and not for the general public. And then this is the recommendation of what type of frequency this should be used. She already had a meditation practice, so we were attaching this to it. And I worked with a bunch of different clients who do meditate, don't meditate, and there's a lot of different things that we can do to work on the mental and subtle, energetic levels. And this is one of the key ones that I just really like. So that was her recommendation. This is a good one, self-massage. So this is working on her joint pain, muscle pain. This is called like a Abhyanga. So sesame oil, full body massage. You can get this done by a practitioner or done by yourself. You want the oil to soak into the skin for 30 to 60 minutes and then follow that up with a steam, like a sauna or a shower, hot shower. Don't use any soap. Just let what oil is going to run off, runs off. What oil is going to get absorbed, gets absorbed. And then you just pat yourself dry with the towel afterwards. That's a wonderful, super rejuvenating ritual. This is very powerful and should not be done by anybody who has a high level of Ama. She had 1.5 points of Ama, and that's the reason I only recommended it to her to do it 1 time a week, because doing this can excite and loosen the Ama. And then once that Ama is excited and loosened, and if you don't have a proper system that's strong enough for the elimination of the Ama, then that Ama can relocate and cause more problems elsewhere. So you got to be really careful with these Ayurvedic recommendations, because Ayurvedic medicine is very powerful and needs to be used in the proper way. And then nightly, just the sesame oil foot massage, because she was having some issues there. Mantras here as recommended. Mental, emotional, we were kind of covering that through the mantras, but sometimes I'll give more specific recommendations here for different people. Depends on their disposition and needs. And then herbal. So again, I don't publicly give out medicinal herbs, but so she was given as a predigestive 2 specific medicinal herbs. half a teaspoon of each herb in tepid water, taken 30 minutes before a meal. And then post-digestive, same thing, 2 medicinal herbs, different than the pre-digestive, because these herbs are working on the Agni, so I'm doing something specific to her Agni. And then post-digestive, I'm doing something specific for her Ama. And same thing, half teaspoon each in tepid water. And sometimes I do, some more sophisticated formulas that might look something like chief herb 1, chief herb 2, based on the condition that you have. And then I would do like a digestive herb. So I would give somebody this formula. I would give you this ratio. So you 2 parts of this, 2 parts of this, 1 part this, 1 part this. You would mix this whole entire thing together in a big batch. And then once you had your own like custom jar of this, herbal compound at home, then I would say, pre-digestive is like 1 teaspoon of this herbal formula before meals, and then 1 teaspoon of this herbal formula after meals, etc. And then at nighttime before bed, the nighttime before bed herbs depends on the person's condition. Sometimes I use it for nourishing, sometimes I use it for cleansing. But it's a really great period of time to be taking herbs because now it's going to stay in your system all night and it's going to be going deeper into the tissues. Because at nighttime when you sleep, your body is working on micronutrition, micro healing, and micro elimination. Really, really wonderful, powerful time. All the timings, how you take herbs, what herbs you take with what vehicle. With her, we simply did in water, but sometimes it's coconut oil, sometimes it's with ghee, sometimes it's in coconut milk or steamed milk, et cetera, et cetera. All these different things are going to have some special and different effects and benefits. And finally, medicated oils. So for her muscles and joints, I was having her do the sesame oil limited. And then this Danwantaram oil is a medicated oil, great for muscle joint pain, great for arthritis. I've used it many times after sports injuries or something like that. Very healing, very powerful, works on the nervous system, works on the tissues and the ligaments. So I gave this to her as a as needed basis because we were doing something else. And the herbs as well that I recommended to her. And Ayurveda herbs have side benefits. So I was working on her digestion, I was working on her menstrual system, I was working on her emotional system, her nervous system with all these different herbs that I recommended her, which is something that I take great care in formulating these for people. But anyways, that's the reason why up above, she was just using sesame oil and not the Danwantaram oil. This was only on a as needed basis. Finally, additional handouts. So every time I work with somebody, I give you a lot of extra resources. So there's tons of education that happens face-to-face when we work together on Zoom or, if you're local in my office. And then once we do the initial consultation, we do this session, the recommendation session, and then I meet my clients every 14 days, every 2 weeks until we're done, until you're healed. So that's kind of the whole process. All right, now you guys have everything and more than you could possibly need to heal IBS on your own. This is way more information than I had at the beginning when I was trying to heal IBS, and even a lot more than the Ayurvedic practitioners gave me at the time when I was trying to heal IBS. Oftentimes you go see one and it's like, hey, what are your problems? Da 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 da. They do a diagnosis. They give you a few herbs recommendation and a few diet recommendation, and then see you later. So I believe in a lot more support, a lot more education, using Ayurveda as a science and a system of understanding, not as a rule book, eat this, not that. It's not always true. Everything can be a medicine or a poison at a different time for a different person, given their current state of balance and condition. So hopefully all of this has been enlightening for you. I know it's a lot of information. It can be super overwhelming. If you've gotten this far to the end of the series, thank you so much for watching everything and sticking with me and learning and implementing this stuff. If you need help with this specific course, I have an IBS implementation call available to you, which you can book below. And there's a short survey you can fill out. You can come to me with your exact questions and what you're doing. And this is just a great small session for us to meet each other, and no obligation to work together, beyond that call, but to give you pointed advice exactly where you're at on your IBS. So I'm happy to do that. And I love meeting clients and talking to you guys. It informs me on what I need to add to my education. And it's just always wonderful to help people heal. That's why I do this. And if you want to go beyond that, which I highly recommend, if you are not seeing the results that you want, or you don't have the time to chunk through all of this stuff and do it on your own, we can get you healing way faster with a lot less mental strain with a IBS healing package, which you can also book below. And that is a full service, full package process where you get everything that I just showed you with that case study, the medicinal herbs, the specific diet, additional recipes, and we meet every 2 weeks to continue to evolve that together. As your body heals, we'll adjust the herbs, we'll adjust the diet. We can adjust the therapy for it to be, stronger as your body gets stronger. And you get tons of education, tons of personalized advice during that, which is extremely powerful for you right now to heal today, but then also going forward through your life. So that client, that case study, I still stay in touch with her today. And, she's just said, all the things that you taught me have been so helpful. And I hear this from all my clients. I still do A, B, C, and D, after we finished our time together, and they're experiencing, wonderful things from all their different healings. So I hope to provide that to you. Thank you so much again for sticking with me through this series. I hope to work with you. I think you're wonderful and great. You can do this, and all the best. Many blessings to you and your healing.